Well, hello everybody. Thanks for tuning into my YouTube channel. I'm Gabriel Weiner, and I'm a voice teacher. And because I believe that singing is a biopsychosocial spiritual endeavor, I approach singing not just from the angle of technical instruction and technique, which I think there's tons of stuff out there for those of you who enjoy that, but I also like to approach it from the psycho social spiritual angle. And because of that, today I have the great honor, to be quite honest, of having one of my favorite authors, Dr. George K. Simon, who has written a number of books, some of which I've read that have been super helpful, and in the development of my character as an artist, a singer, a teacher, and just as a person. So, Dr. Simon, thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Happy to do it, Gabriel.
Thank you. So would you tell us a little bit about yourself, about how you kind of came on the scene and what you do and all that?
Well, I've been studying what we call character, the moral side of personality, even before I went to graduate school to become a clinical psychologist. So I've been studying it for a long time, maybe 55 years or so. And it's just been more of an issue since I became a professional counselor and witnessed firsthand the fact that most people's problems centered around character issues as opposed to various types of neuroses. And for that reason, I had to reinvent a lot of wheels because most clinicians that I know, and most clinicians, especially in the era in which I was trained, were not trained to deal with disturbances of character. And they also weren't trained on how to help people grow in character. And along the way, I came up with these 10 commandments of character that are the topic of my book, Essentials for the Journey. And what they represent are the learning imperatives that we have to master along the way to develop our capacity to truly love. And what I realized very deeply, most of our traditional psychology paradigms operate under the assumption that various trauma uh, arrests our development and causes some problems that we're not very aware of. But what I learned from clinical research, about 40 years of it, is that it's not so much what happens to us that really affects our character growth. That does play a role. But what we don't get, what doesn't happen in the way of our solid nurturing in character formation, that plays an even bigger part. It's what we don't learn that we need to learn that is the bigger player. And when I realized that, and I started working people who had come to that point in their life where they just knew that they had some character growth to do, when it became apparent, they didn't even know how to go about it. They didn't know, they basically say, where do I start? And that's where we developed the 10 Commandments of character.
Great, yes. And so, as Dr. Simon mentioned, this is in his most recent book, hopefully not the last, but most recent publication, Essentials for the Journey. I've read three times. I highly recommend it. And, if I may, I'm going to use myself as the case study here. I don't know if that's the right word to say. I'm going to talk about myself. I've seen a lot of people interview you and also seen many interviews. And I'm just going to use myself as the subject and my story, if I may. And then we can talk about me and my own development, because I think that that can be helpful. instead of talking about other, hypothetical people out there. So when I was a kid, I lacked uh, all of this, the Ten Commandments, and like you said, I do think I had some traumatic experiences that I used to continually assume were why I was kind of arrested in my development and hung up. But it wasn't until I absorbed these commandments through both this book and many other ways that I acquired some things that were just essentially never installed in my system, such as these commandments that were structuring me and shaping me. So I was in therapy all the time, addressing my trauma and trying to heal my trauma. But not a lot was changing because it wasn't just that I needed soothing and, validation. I also needed some, well, I'll say it again, installation of some stuff that was never put in there.
Right.
And I used to blame, my mom and my dad and be so angry. I felt like they didn't give me what I needed or what I wanted. But I've learned since that they also didn't get it. And I don't think their parents got it either. So it wasn't until I found, material like this that I was like, oh, this is what's going to get me to move forward in my development. And so I'm going to use the lens of my story through my journey as a singer and artist. So I felt neglected as a child a little bit. And then I saw an artist I'm sure you've heard of, Ricky Martin, when I was like 16. And then I decided that what I needed to do to cure my kind of sad self that, was feeling powerless was to become this superstar. So I wanted to be this giant, powerful celebrity. And at the time, he was conquering the world. He was, he had the world at the palm of his hands with Living La Vida Loca. And I said, that's what's gonna, cure all my sadness and maladies. And so then that was the birth of me deciding that what I wanted to do with my life was to be a singer. But I didn't just want to be a singer. I wanted to be a mega super duper duper star. And so then I tried that and it didn't go so well. And then I went to college and then I wanted to be a Broadway star. And so I don't know if you can hear in my story there, I was trying to be this huge, influential, powerful being. And I've learned since that I also love singing and I love expression and I love being an artist. But sadly for me, the only kind of way I could mentalize or visualize that that would take off was if I was going to be a giant superstar. And I went to school with a lot of kids that I think were similar to me in college. And then we fought over this spot of who was going to be the king, who was going to be the star. And I'll say more about my story as we go along, but I want to give you a chance to respond to that kind of solution I came up with to be this giant star.
Yeah. The Essentials for the Journey is a melding of both psychology and human science and also spirituality. It's a melding of all three because as a scientist and just as a person who has learned the value of honesty, and I talk about honesty a lot in the book. The seeking of truth for its own sake has incredible value, and when that's your objective, when you really want to know the truth of things, unbiased, unvarnished, and whatnot, some amazing things can happen. And the truth of us is the biggest truth about us is, as some of the mystics have said, we barely know where we come from and where we're going. And our egos are a seemingly necessary part of navigating this world that we come into. They're a necessary part, but our egos necessarily separate us from the source of life. And also our egos can get easily bent out of shape. And that has a whole lot to do with our character. And so while it's not unusual to have grandiose dreams, you know, when it is all about us and not about our place in the much bigger scheme of things, um, there's trouble. There's trouble. There's not only trouble for us, but there's trouble for everybody. And so coming to the deeper awareness, the greater truth of life should, and I talk about this in the book a lot, it should rightfully evoke in us a sense of deep awe, just total disarming awe at the grandeur that we had nothing to do with, but that something certainly did. And that helps balance our ego. We're in this walk, whether we know it or not, or whether we appreciate it or not. We're in this walk with the energy that not only operates the universe, but sustains every single one of the billions of activities going on inside every single one of our cells at any given moment, sustaining our very physical existence. So something is at work here, so big, so incomprehensibly grandiose. I don't even know another word for it, that we can't wrap our hearts or minds around it.
Well, I certainly couldn't when I was 17, but Ricky Martin seemed to be the representation of this grand thing that I was in awe of. I think I felt understimulated and kind of bored by life. And then when I saw him on stage,
Yeah.
I thought he's that grand thing that I have to be in awe of and
Right.
then pursue and then later become.
Right.
Because I wasn't in touch with that, when I was now. When I hear you speaking, I have a stronger sense of it. But when I was a teenager, if you spoke like that, I would have said, "Who's this religious man talking about, such obscure things? Like, show me the money, show me the six pack abs, show me the jet plane, the fame, the fans clapping. That's what I wanted then, because I thought that was the awe I was supposed to pursue."
Back in the early days when I was first researching this clinically and dealing with my clients, it came to me through work with a select group of folks, something that the research has, in the last 20 years, backed up very solidly. But at the time, the research hadn't yet backed it up. But the surest way for an ego to become inflated is for it to claim the gifts that are given by the universe, to claim those gifts as their own, and to um, be enamored of those gifts in and of themselves. So when you see a person, let's take Ricky Martin, for example. I
Okay.
remember being struck by his stage presence, as we
Mhm,
call it, right?
mhm.
Because there seemed to be so much natural talent there that with ease you were mesmerized. You kind of like a Michael Jackson character. You can't take your eyes off because so much is going on that seems so natural, right? And so engaging. And you think, wow. right? It's akin to the awe that we should have for the giver, right? But when the ego claims this, when the ego says, oh, I know I got this. When the ego claims the gift without honoring the giver and without doing homage to the giver, that's how it becomes inflated. And so the research has now caught up in a way where it says basically, if you want to inflate Johnny's ego, tell him what big, beautiful eyes he has, which he had absolutely, positively nothing to do with. Tell him how bright he is. He could have been born as dumb as a brick, but tell him how smart he is, tell him how talented he is, like that. You will build him up in the wrong way. What we fail to do, and this is one of those learning failures, and this is what came to me so clearly. It's not so much what we learn as what we don't learn. What we fail to do is give Johnny adequate credit for only what he can claim, which is how he uses what he's been given, how conscientiously he honors the giver and uses what he has, not only for his own benefit, but for the benefit of all in a conscientious way. Now, that credit belongs to him. And we don't do a very good job of helping Johnny discriminate basically what belongs to him and what belongs to God. That's a
I
huge moral
so
failure.
yeah, well, my name's not Johnny, but I am Johnny because what happened was that I was a light-skinned white kid with blonde hair and big eyes, as you described, and I went to a public school in a suburb in Santiago, Dominican Republic, where having white skin was just the best thing you could possibly have in their perception. And having blonde, straight hair like I did was the best thing you could have. They even have a term, they said I had good hair. Everybody else had bad hair. And so I'm one of five, and a lot of my neighbors and people in the neighborhood said that my mom's name is Angela. I was Angela's most handsome, smartest, and talented. So I was the best of Angela's children. And in school, everybody thought I was the smartest, most handsome kid. And so they did build that up. And I promise you, it never felt comfortable for me because I saw reactions in other kids where they weren't happy. They were feeling left out. They were envious of all this attention that I was getting without me asking for it. I was just existing. And, I had the big eyes and the blonde hair and the light skin, like you said. And so people, built my ego up in a way that I really promise you I did not ask for it at all. And, I think it went to my head. And so when people would talk about who's most likely to become famous in the neighborhood, they said Gabriel. Who's most likely to go places? They said Gabriel. I was the quote star of this small little neighborhood. And then I felt a ton of pressure. I felt like if I don't live up to this, then I will have let everybody down. And so it was a long process of me kind of taking that apart. But I wanted to go back to what you said because I agree. I always personally wanted credit for what I did with what I was given, not so much with what was given, period. And I am very kind of passionate about merit and things being based on merit. But then I went to college for theater and I thought this was going to be a meritocracy, that it was going to be based on who worked harder, who practiced the most, who showed up on time, who had the best character, who was the most honest. And I was those things, I to the best of my ability, but I was not getting the roles. So the people that were getting the roles were the ones that reminded the professors of who they were when they were younger, or the ones that were from the neighborhoods that they were from and stuff. So my ego, as you said, got very pissed off and said, I'm putting in the work, I'm doing all these things, and no matter what I do, the roles keep getting assigned to the same kids every semester. To the point where it got ludicrous. Like the excuse was that I had an accent and that I wasn't American, and they would then cast white kids in Italian roles or Latino roles over me, even though I think I gave pretty good auditions, and other people would say, don't worry, this is your year, this is your turn. And they kept not giving it to me. And sadly, I was a kid in school. I didn't know that the world was bigger than college. So by the time I got out of college, I was so beat down because it wasn't based on merit. It was based on things that I couldn't control.
Yeah. It is an absolutely necessary thing, it appears, for us to have these egos. But Wayne Dyer, the author, years ago coined the acronym for ego, EGO, as edging God out.
Mm.
And at the time I first heard that, I thought, no, I'm not sure fully exactly what he means by that. And I'm not sure that that's really accurate, but I've come to see the wisdom of that. It is natural for us to separate as we experience this world and all the good and the bad in this world, all the things that please us versus the things that hurt us. As we navigate that, it is naturally for us to lose contact with our deeper self that is more intimately connected with the source. That's the human plight. The job of religion, that word has roots, believe it or not. Religio, you know, like when we review something, the RE part means to do it again or to go back and view it again. Okay. So these words have meaning. Well, religio means to rebind or reconnect. To what? To what exactly? Well, all the mystics had the answer. To the deeper source inside, the non-material, profoundly incomprehensible, eternal energy that's behind it all, right? So the job of most of our faith disciplines is to rebind us, and they have failed miserably, all of them, miserably. Some, I think, do a slightly better job than others, but the evidence that they've all failed is the fact that our world is not a paradise.
Yeah.
That's the evidence that
I
they
have a similar kind of story around my religious development as well. I ended up just going the contemplative path where it's more just me with myself because there's so much distrust and fear I have of systems that continue to make it about ego or competition. And so I've ended up in a sangha or a spiritual community that is non-social. So basically, we only interact within the context of practicing together. And then we're not like friends or friendly because we just maintain what we call the privileged environment where we are not social because the minute you get social with your community, then there's gossip and all this kind of stuff. So there's like a lot of apprehension and fear of me of like even pursuing theater again or pursuing religion again because I guess what I'm saying is I get burned when I get into these things. And the thing I wanted to say about ego is I don't know if there's a psychological term for this. Personally, I don't experience myself as much or anything really. But the second I go into a social context, people will start to define who I am. So, like, I live in the Upper West Side in New York City. I'm not saying that as a brag, even though people think I am. And then they'll be like, oh, Gabriel's a voice teacher in the Upper West Side in New York City, and he's written a book and yada yada. And they construct this ego about me. And then I even hear through the grapevine things about me that don't feel egocentric, I think is the word, where I'm just like, I am not that big thing you guys are talking about or whatever. So how do
Well,
we deal with that?
yeah, ego presumes the same things for everyone, and ego is only concerned about two things. Ego is concerned about being distinguished. In other words, being an individual, distinguishing itself from another self. It's also concerned about social position, and it strives for distinguishment there as well. And so, naturally, in the world of ego, it matters, where you live, who your associates are, et cetera, et cetera. How deeply connected you are to the source, how you honor the source, what you bring to the world in the way of potential health and healing and goodness, et cetera. Eh, that's not so important to the ego. And so that's why, again, I say that our major disciplines have failed because ego is an acronym for edging God out. And if God is to reign supreme in this world, ego has to take a back seat. And the how of both how we get there and the how of the process of transforming ourselves as well as helping to transform the world is ultimately what really good character is all about. Really good character is about relationship and the quality of relationship because love can only exist within the context of a relationship, whether it's the relationship we have with ourselves or with the relationship we have with any other human being or the world at large. And so the transformation always starts here. It always starts with that reconnection to the source that we are entirely beholden to. And my hope for the world's major disciplines is that they rediscover their roots. They become institutions of power, manipulation, and control. They become almost caricatures of themselves with fancy robes and theater and big screens and theatrical performance
Yes,
in
I've
some
noticed.
case. Oh my goodness.
Yes, so I guess we can think about this together. It seems that the ego has, and I would say maybe legitimate fear that if you don't build a good, strong ego, you're probably gonna sink. I know that in New York City you will. So I kind of have to lead with a little bit of that if I'm not going to be squashed. And again, that might be an anxiety or a fear, but how are you a leading man on a Broadway show? How are you a celebrity without ego? I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it, but I mean, how can that even be like
Yeah,
done?
yeah. You know, confidence is a very, very close cousin of both ego itself and of faith, because in faith you have confidence, and you have hope as well. But confidence itself that's not rooted in a deep faith uh, of knowing what it is the universe means you to be doing and acting always in love, pouring out the love, which is infectious. If you actually love what you're doing, why you're doing it, and you are helping the world to love by doing it, you're doing just as the universe means you to do. And it naturally, most often, it naturally pays off, even in this world. But if your concern is actually for the payoff, then things can go horribly wrong.
So let's talk
Um,
about the concern for the payoff for a minute, because as you know, my generation has incredible difficulty buying a home. The economy that we have is very different.
right.
So I am concerned about the payoff. I don't think from an ego kind of place, but more like I'd like to have a home someday. I'd like to have a good Broadway job someday. And I am concerned about that. I'm not going to pretend like I'm detached from the outcome or I don't want it. And I'm willing to do the work and I'm willing to show up and I'm willing to be loving and all of that. I'm willing to have good character and I'm willing to achieve it in the principled, sound character way. But I am concerned about the outcome because I'm not going to pretend like, oh, if it doesn't happen, it's fine. No, I want to have security. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. However, I consider it very serious, and I'm very serious when I talk about the difference that everything takes on in both appearance and in reality. The world not only looks different, but is different when you're reconnected to the source. It is natural for us to separate. But once we know, not here, and not even in the heart, but very deeply in what the Italians call the core. This is
Mhm.
where you sing from, right?
Mhm.
When you're
Yeah.
really when you're really putting it out there, it's coming from a different place. It's coming right from here. You can't see my camera is not showing where I'm pointing here. I'll back up, but it's not here. It's not even in the heart. It's way here, right? Um, and when we're there, we realize that we are travelers through an experience and that it's only a moment or a set of moments in an eternity. Eternity is now. This is a part of forever and all ever that was before now. This is just a part, and we're traveling through. And once we have that awareness, that deep awareness, not just the mental belief, but that deep awareness that we're travelers and that we have a companion, once we realize that, the journey itself becomes amazing. We can look at where we are right now and actually maybe make peace with the fact that this is where we are right now. And we don't even know where we're supposed to be a day from now, 6 days from now, 6 years from now.
I'm with you 100%. I can feel where you're pointing to, and I love the sense of just sensing into that space, and I can get there. I want to ask you, do you think it's harder for kids today to get there?
Well, let me answer that by asking a really pointed question.
Please.
Do you think that you could find the heart to believe that at exactly the right moment, if you are truly meant to be in a particular situation, whether it be home ownership or the star in a Broadway performance, that your companion would not only have prepared the way, but also be with you in the joy of the moment because that's exactly where you're supposed to be? You think you could find the heart to embrace that?
100%, yes.
Well, then that takes away all worry,
It
all
it takes
concern.
it takes away my concern and my worry, but so just so you know, I work one on one with people a lot, and I hear their worries a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and they have these worries, and I don't know that I'm as skilled as you at pointing them back to that inner confidence and certainty and all of that. But the I think what I'm bumping up against is the political climate of the moment and the economy that we're living under. It seems, and I don't know because I wasn't around when you were born, that it is harder now. And of course, I mean seems. I'm not saying it is uh, to cut through all of that fog today than it was maybe 100 years ago. Or I'm not saying you're 100, but you know what I
So I'll ask another provocative question.
mean. Yeah.
Let us say that the universe really needs you to be exactly where you are, doing exactly what you're doing. Let's just say that, hypothetically. Could that not be enough?
It is for me. I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty well. I'm talking about those of us that are not.
Yeah. Well, and we can't, we, ours is not to walk anybody else's path. And essentials for the journey, I wanted to be very careful about that, sharing only some things that I knew from experience and from working with people were typical roadblocks. But everybody's path is different and everybody's pace is different. And one thing I learned, and I actually give the example in one of the chapters of the book. I had an occasion, I was out with my wife and my grandchildren at a pizza joint, and this person came up to me that I thought a little bit, I thought maybe I kind of recognized this person, but they didn't look at all like the person that I knew years ago. And I have to tell you, you talk about people who are just naturally gifted in both their appearance and to their talents. This person could have been like a GQ model. I mean, just strikingly handsome and bright. And he would have been that person that in his class, everybody would have said, that person's going places, right? Had everything. But he gotten in some bad trouble. And my early experiences working with him were kind of up and down. And my last encounter with him was not really good. And I thought basically that I had failed him. And so he comes up to me, and I'm still not recognizing until he actually tells me, but he whispers in my ear that he never forgot a single word, never forgot a single word, but he wasn't ready until the time came that he was ready. So it's not for us to say when is the time or the place. If we're in this cooperative relationship, we faithfully do what we sincerely in the heart believe the universe is calling us to do. We just do it.
You're a very spiritual and faithful man, as am I. And I will tell you that I know it's not my issue or business, there seems to be a huge lack of spirituality and faith in a lot of people. I think that they're more trying to white knuckle and will things into existence, and when they don't, then they can get very cynical and bitter. And I think that that's why there's a great deal of unhappiness, because there's no faith, no surrender, no trust. It seems like it's getting buried. I don't want to say it's dead, because I don't think it can be killed, but I've managed through my daily meditation and spiritual practice, and also just intuition. I agree. I think that I have a companion, and I think that this companion has me where I need to be, is taking me where I need to get to, etc. And that my job is to just be a faithful servant to that. But I can tell you, it doesn't seem like that is the popular experience of people, at least around where I'm at. Is it any different where you are?
No, it's the same pretty universally, and that's why I say our major disciplines have failed largely. And part of the evidence for that is all the splintering even within the major disciplines. Every single formal discipline has sects within it and separations within it, and for a reason, because the primary task there has been lost. I was reading somewhere, there are many different branches of Judaism. In Christianity, there are 45,000, get that, 45,000 major, now we're talking major formal
Oh my God,
versions of
crazy.
this supposed faith system. And
Schizophrenic.
that's just the major ones, right?
Yeah.
Um, there are strains within Islam too, everything. And I want to tell you an experience that I had visiting the Holy Land.
Uh-huh.
We were on a tour guided part of the experience, and just outside the walls of the old city, and being told what kind of ground we were standing on, what had transpired there almost 3,000 years earlier, what had transpired there 2,000 years earlier, 1,500 years earlier, etc. And all of a sudden, something came over me as I have back issues. So at the time, I was still recovering from a back surgery, and I'd been tired of standing. So I actually had to kneel down for a minute. And then I had this moment
Mm.
where I was in this sand that had been there for centuries in this holy land and holy city.
Mm.
And as I was gazing upon the grain of sands, this insight was given to me. I thought, okay, this is a special holy place, right? This is special holy ground. So, exactly at what grain of sand, because they all touch each other, at exactly what grain does the holiness
Where's the
start?
boundary?
Where's the boundary? And like this, this thing came to me, and I talk about it in the book. This thing came to me about the nature of boundaries within the realm of genuine love. Some boundaries that we have constructed are not only artificial, but are detrimental to our coming together in love. They are barriers, basically, to our communion with one another.
Walls.
Well, there are walls that need to come down. On the other hand, paradoxically, there are other boundaries that are not artificial, that are almost essential if you're going to really be faithful to the good willing of well being for another person. So there are certain boundaries you don't cross. on purpose, simply for the other person's protection and well-being.
Yes.
And learning the difference between the walls that have to come down and the boundaries that must be respected, that's the task of a lifetime. I
I,
mean,
I
it just,
yeah.
the awareness just kind of blew my mind. And it all came from that moment, just a moment looking at the sand.
Well, and it sounds like you were humbled to the ground, quite literally, because your back couldn't, and then you
Couldn't
kneel.
stand up. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
God work. God is beyond comp. You talk about the presence of a Ricky Martin on the stage. The the awe that and you experience that awe. You look at someone with all those gifts and you just think, oh my goodness, the awe and reverence that we should have for this incredible something that we can't even define, but we can't even find the words for. That ought to be our reaction.
Yeah. Well, I have it now. I didn't again, like I said, at 17. And now when I see Ricky Martin, I don't have the same awe. I see a machine, and I see the lighting, and I see the makeup, and I see it's a very theatrical thing. And I think I was duped, like people are by, fantasy movies, whatever. Now, like you're talking about God, I've had a number of experiences like yours where, like you said, you can't, it's not only that you can't, I can't even locate it. I can't even, it omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. It's just all over. And a lot of times the Ricky Martin stuff is just a distraction from, the stars behind him, or, the literal stars, or the moon, or the sun, or just the ocean, or the earth, or nature. I couldn't see any of that when it wasn't exciting enough for me. It wasn't like putting sugar in my mouth, and going, wow. But now I can savor things that maybe didn't seem as savory when I was young. But, I can't tell if that was just a natural part of maturing, or if it was just that I was so malnourished in a way, like spiritually, emotionally. I wasn't exposed to things that were pointing me to God. I was exposed to things that were telling me that there was something wrong with me and that I needed to make myself better. So then I saw Ricky Martin, and I was like, that's how I'm going to do it.
I drove one of my early vocal coaches a little crazy. I really did, because back in the days when my voice was working and I was really trying to train it, I didn't understand my voice. I have what I'm sure you've heard the term, a big voice.
Hmm.
So properly conditioned and properly exercised, I don't sing like pop music. It's all the
Right.
baritone solos and
More like a Helden tenor. Oh,
yeah,
baritone, baritone. Oh, like a big baritone. Okay.
yeah. I can get into the tenor range if I'm really, really well conditioned, you know.
Better
And
not to. If you're a baritone, just stay there.
right, it hurts. At any rate, to get back to the story, I used to drive this person crazy because um, there was something so beautiful to me about what seemed a perfect marriage. And I'm using that word deliberately, the perfect union between a note and a word
Oh yeah.
that some of the great composers seem to have been able to do, just the right word at the right time and at the right pitch. There's something really magical about that. And so when, as you know, you're in the spirit of things and you're really coming from the core and you're mindful to honor that marriage, it's beautiful. But when it doesn't seem right, and there were times, because I've labored. My only instrument has ever been my voice, and I composed a few songs, a few pieces, and I've labored. But whenever the marriage seems wrong, it bothers me. And so when I had to rehearse stuff that was painful, I would object. I would say, I can't do this faithfully because when I come to right here, I want to do something else so badly that I can't treat this faithfully. I'm mad at this person for marrying this note in this way to this word right here, and I can't do it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
used to drive him crazy.
I get it, and I mean, I'm sure he had the same experience with his coach when he was studying. There's a sensitivity that we have where if that attunement and that kind of resonance, that frequency, well, like you said, not just with the pitch or in the volume, but also with the word.
With the word.
Yeah, yeah. I think writers, we have that kind of um, sensibility or sensitivity to like when I'm reading a book, I'm like, this word would have been better there, or that word would have been better there. And we spoke about this when I first met you. Um, I said something about the pursuit of truth, the love of truth. That's always been such a huge thing for me, and I think that's why the word has to be right. But here's the a question for you, and I guess we'll have to start wrapping up soon. Um, it's kind of a different angle on the same question I've been asking you. As spiritual, faithful lovers of truth, in this world that is so ego dominated, at least on the surface, and I know that this is just a blip in time, and that eventually, the truth and God will triumph over all. But in this moment in time that we're in history, and place where I am in New York City, you're saying that if I have that confidence and that joy and that love from the, I guess, sourcing it and locating it and guiding it through my faith and my love, that it usually goes well. That's what you're saying. But would you say it's a challenge? Because it seems like the folks that don't have the best character sometimes get more toys. And the folks that have the best character get less toys. And it's fine. We don't need all the toys. But I guess how do you balance that? Being a morally sound person and then thriving in this system that seems to reward people that are not.
Okay. I'm going to answer in the abstract because this is what's coming to me.
Okay.
Being a faithful, genuinely loving partner in any marriage, including our marriage with the source, is a challenge because ego is always in the way. It's the great separator. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
But in the end, we are spiritual beings having this very human experience, and for a reason. And keeping that in mind, that it is just that, a purposeful experience on the journey to the perfect union. Keeping that in mind, we can more inner peacefully, just walk, just walk the walk as faithfully as we know how and leave the rest to God.
Hmm.
Because frankly, the master plan is absolutely none of our business.
I do have to say, Dr. Simon, I keep having this experience when I have conversations like this with men like yourself or just people like you, where it just feels so much easier just because we're having the conversation, the alignment. I don't have this conversation at this depth. And to be frank with you, I'm like, are we going to lose our audience here? Um, I don't have this conversation at this depth very often. I've had it, at different levels of depth. But when I talk to you, I feel like the resonance, like you're talking about that marriage or that note, you keep saying exactly the word I want to hear. So it makes it so
Well,
much.
if that's true, that has little to do with me and much more to do with what maybe I have been graced with. I have to tell you, my lessons have been hard.
Mm,
I am a very stubborn, um, innately, I think, kind of clueless character who's done far more stumbling and bumbling, and many times have had to be hit over the head with a two by four just to wake up a little bit. So, um,
now I see why I like you.
I mean, all credit goes to this benevolent something that has, for some reason that I haven't yet discerned, found some value in walking with me. Or that's not even the right way to say it. I don't even know what I'm trying to say there.
Well,
But
I can tell you, you had
anything,
me, you had me fooled. I thought you were this docile, easily kind of humbled person.
no, that's come the hard way, the very hard way.
Would you say aging and failure softened you? Is that kind of what it is?
Um, I would say baptisms, three major ones. This last one took better than the first two,
Hmm.
because
Like you mean literal baptisms?
I mean experiential baptisms. I'm not talking about pouring water over
Oh,
somebody's head. I'm talking about uh, being humbled to the point that life starts all over again, differently.
like hitting rock bottom?
Hitting, that's what they call it in the 12 step groups. Yeah. Where you're so low, the ants have to stoop to pee on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a little bit there right now. I have this. You talked about back issues. I have sacroiliac joint
Mm,
inflammation. I've been bedridden for the last 3 days. I'm just getting up to teach and to do this interview, and then going back to bed for the last 3 days. And the ants can still crawl over me. They don't have to stoop yet, but yeah, I've hit some of those myself,
yeah.
and I would say that those are the great softeners. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they can be depending on how we.
And anything good that I have to give has always been given to me first. So, you know, all the credit, all the glory always goes someplace else.
Mm.
It's just how it is.
I really, really appreciate you doing this. For those of you who we did not lose in our spiritual exploration, um, the book Essentials for the Journey is available anywhere you can get books, I believe, right?
It's available where you can get books, but since COVID, independent bookstores and chain stores only put on their shelves what the single mass distributor left in the business puts on their digital
Catalog.
roster.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you can get it, but better to just get it from Amazon or one of the major online sellers.
Okay, great. So, yes, you can grab your copy on Amazon. I know there is an audio version for those of you that prefer listening. Some people like that. And there's an ebook version too, the Kindle
Right.
version, and then there's a physical copy, which is my favorite. And I'll just say this really briefly. If you feel like there were lessons that you did not get about how to stand up on your own 2 feet and be proud in a way that is not coming from ego, but coming from character and yourself, grab a copy of this book. It has helped me tremendously. I read it 3 times and I'm about to start reading it again. Yes, so thank you so much, Dr. Simon, for joining me. I cannot tell you how awestruck I am by our conversation, by the words that come through you from the source, to not boost your ego. And I have to tell you, I first listened. The first book of yours that I listened to was Character Disturbance, and it changed my brain chemistry. It changed my life. I was hitting a bottom, driving Uber, and I put in the audiobook. This was 7 years ago or something like that. And I just, it felt like everything you were saying in that book, everything that I was listening to was exactly what I needed to hear. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So thank you and have a wonderful day. Appreciate your time.
So happy to have been with you today.
Me too. Thank you.